A powerful CEO witnesses the public humiliation of a young convenience store clerk, Park Min-ji, who struggles with overwhelming hospital debts. Touched by her dignity and resilience, he decides the next day to orchestrate a surprise that will completely change her destiny. The sun had barely peeked through Seoul's grey buildings, but for Park Min-ji, the darkness of the previous night still hung heavily over her. Every muscle in her body ached, not just from the exhausting shift at the convenience store, but from the invisible weight of public humiliation. The image of the man gesticulating furiously, the cruel words about her brother's debts echoing in her mind, was a constant torment. She rose from the thin mattress on the floor of her small rented room, the smell of mold and despair permeating the walls. She looked at the framed photo on the dresser, her younger brother, Han-jun, smiling before the illness consumed him. Now he was tethered to tubes and machines, and Min-ji was the only bridge between him and life. The burden was overwhelming. On the way to the convenience store, the cold morning air couldn't dissipate the knot in her stomach. Every step was a battle against the urge to simply give up. Upon arriving, the familiar scent of coffee and snacks enveloped her, a routine that once offered a semblance of normality, but which today felt like a cruel reminder of her stagnation. She put on her uniform, the fabric a little tight, and positioned herself behind the counter, a mask of courtesy plastered to her face. The shift dragged on, each customer an indistinct blur. Min-ji was absorbed in her thoughts, mentally calculating what she could sell to cover the next hospital installment, when her phone vibrated in her pocket. The unknown number made her heart skip a beat. It was Seoul University Hospital. She answered, her voice choked with apprehension. "Hello, Park Min-ji speaking." "Miss Park Min-ji, I'm from the hospital's financial administration. We're calling to inform you about your brother, Park Han-jun's account." The voice on the other end was calm and professional, but Min-ji already felt the panic rising. "Yes, I know I'm working to cover it, but..." She braced herself for the inevitable collection, perhaps a warning that services would be reduced. "No, miss. In fact, we're calling to inform you that the outstanding balance on your brother's account has been fully settled." Min-ji blinked. "What? Settled? That's not possible. I haven't made any large payments." "We understand your surprise. An anonymous donor made the full transfer of funds this morning. All debts have been cleared." Min-ji's breath hitched in her throat. She felt her legs give way. An anonymous donor? Who? I need to know who it is." "We apologize, miss. The donor requested complete anonymity. No information can be disclosed." The tears Min-ji had held back for so long finally rolled down, hot and uncontrollable. It was such an overwhelming relief that it felt unreal. The weight of months, years of worry, sleepless nights, humiliations suddenly evaporated. But the confusion was equally intense. Who would do such a thing? Why? She had barely recovered from the shock when, hours later, checking her email during a break, she found a new message. The sender was Lee Group Human Resources. Min-ji frowned. The Lee Group was one of the largest and most prestigious corporations in the country. She had never applied for anything there. She opened the email, her heart pounding. It was a formal letter, inviting her for an interview for a senior administrative assistant position. The salary was more than double what she earned, and the benefits were incredible. The strangest thing, however, was the last sentence. "Your resilience and dignity, observed in a public setting, deeply impressed us. We believe you possess the character and strength necessary to thrive in our team." Min-ji reread the sentence several times. Public setting, the convenience store, the humiliation. Someone saw her. Someone not only saw her, but acted. The connection between the debt payment and this job offer was undeniable. Far away, in his luxurious office with a panoramic view of the city, Lee Jin-woo watched his computer screen. A discreet report confirmed that the email had been read. A subtle, satisfied smile played on his lips. He had seen the spark of strength in Minji, and now he was kindling the flame. The first step had been taken. Her future, and perhaps his, was just beginning to unfold. The email from Lee Group Human Resources seemed like a delusion, a cruel mirage in the desert of her reality. Minji reread the last sentence, the words resilience and dignity, observed in a public setting, engraving themselves in her mind. The public setting, the convenience store, the humiliation. A shiver ran down her spine. Someone had seen her, not just as a struggling clerk, but as something more. And that someone, apparently, had the power to move mountains. The initial euphoria of Hanjun's debt payment gave way to a wave of distrust. Was it real? Was it some kind of trap? Why would such a giant corporation be interested in her? A woman with no formal qualifications beyond high school and years of manual labor? The fear that it was all a sham, that hope would be snatched from her as quickly as it was given, tightened her chest. But then the image of Hanjun came to mind. His weak smile, his dependence on her. The debt relief was a miracle, and this job offer, if true, was another. She couldn't afford to be skeptical. She couldn't ignore the chance for a better life for her brother, for a life where she wouldn't have to bow down and accept humiliations. With a trembling sigh, Minji decided she would go to the interview. The following days were a mix of anxiety and a strange sense of purpose. She rummaged through her scanty wardrobe for something minimally presentable. She found an old black blazer, a little tight in the shoulders, and a pencil skirt she had saved for special occasions that never came. She spent hours researching the Lee Group, feeling increasingly intimidated by the company's magnitude. On the day of the interview, the Seoul sun seemed brighter, but Minji felt as if she were walking in a dream. The Lee Group building was a colossus of glass and steel, imposing and elegant, brutally contrasting with the small convenience store where she spent her days. Upon entering the lobby, the polished marble and the respectful silence of the employees made her feel even smaller, an intruder in a world that wasn't hers. A smiling receptionist directed her to the elevator, which took her to a high floor with a city view. The Human Resources office was modern and spacious. Minji was led to a glass-walled meeting room where a woman with a serious but kind demeanor awaited her. "Miss Park Minji, I'm Kim Ji-yeon, HR Director. Thank you for coming." The voice was soft but professional. Minji bowed deeply, her hands sweaty. "Thank you for having me, ma'am." The interview began. Ji-yeon didn't ask the typical questions about experience or technical qualifications, which Minji knew she didn't have. Instead, she asked about her ability to handle pressure, how she reacted to unexpected challenges, her work ethic, and her determination. Minji spoke about Hanjun, about the difficulties, about the need to never give up. She spoke with a raw honesty that surprised her. "Your story is poignant, Miss Park," Ji-yeon said, her eyes fixed on hers. "But what interested us was your demeanor in the face of adversity, the way you maintained your dignity even under attack. That's something that isn't taught in resumes." Minji felt a knot in her throat. It was him, the man from the convenience store. He had told them, "The senior administrative assistant position requires someone with strong character and resilience, someone who can be a pillar of support." Ji-yeon continued, a slight smile appearing. "We believe you have the potential for that." The interview ended with the promise of a callback soon. Minji left the building in a state of stupor. Hope was palpable, but confusion still enveloped her. Who was this mysterious person orchestrating all of this? And why? Far away at the top of the building, Lee Jin-woo watched Minji leave the building through the glass of his panoramic window. A subtle smile of satisfaction played on his lips. He had seen her, yes, and now he was guiding her to a new path. The first step to bringing her into his world had been taken. He wasn't just a CEO, he was, for now, her silent guardian. And with every step she took, he felt that their destinies were intertwining in a way he could never have predicted. The days following the call from Kim Ji-yeon were a torture for Min-ji. Every minute at the convenience store counter was a cruel reminder of the chasm between her current reality and the promise of a future in a glass and steel skyscraper. The smell of stale coffee and snacks seemed stronger, the fluorescent lights colder, the customers more demanding. She found herself looking at her phone with every vibration, her heart leaping in hopes of it being the call from the Lee Group, only to be disappointed by a promotional text message or a call from an unknown number. Hope was a double-edged sword. On one hand, the prospect of a better life for Han-jun, of no longer having to worry about every penny, was a balm for her weary soul. On the other, the fear that it was all a deception, that the offer would be withdrawn or that she wouldn't be good enough, gnawed at her from within. She remembered Kim Ji-yeon's words, the HR director. "Your demeanor in the face of adversity. The way you maintained your dignity, even under attack." Who was this person who had seen her? And why were they investing so much in her? Her gratitude was immense, but confusion was a constant shadow. 3 days after the interview, as Min-ji cleaned a beverage shelf, her phone vibrated. The number was unknown, but this time a different feeling washed over her. She answered, her voice a little shaky. "Hello? Miss Park Min-ji. This is Kim Ji-yeon from the Lee Group. I have great news." Min-ji's world stopped. She felt her legs give way again, just like the day she learned about Han-jun's debt. Yes, ma'am. The recruitment team and the board were extremely impressed with your interview. We would like to formalize a job offer for the senior administrative assistant position. Min-ji put a hand to her mouth, stifling a sob. The words seemed to float in the air, unreal. I was accepted. Yes, Miss Park. The starting salary will be 4 million won per month, with a complete benefits package, including premium health insurance and annual bonuses. Your first day of work would be in 2 weeks to allow you to get organized. 4 million won. It was almost triple what she earned. Premium health insurance. Tears streamed freely down her face now, but they were tears of pure relief and gratitude. She couldn't speak, just shook her head, as if Ji-yeon could see her. "Miss Park, are you all right?" Ji-yeon's voice was gentle. Yes, ma'am, I accept. Thank you very much. Thank you very much." Min-ji finally managed to utter, her voice choked. "Excellent. We will send the documents by email today. Please review them and return them with your digital signature. Welcome to the Lee Group team, Miss Park." Min-ji hung up the phone, the device still warm in her hand. She looked at the convenience store ceiling, the fluorescent lights now seeming less oppressive. The weight she had carried for years had finally been lifted. Han-jun. She could give Han-jun the best treatment, the best care. She could breathe. That night, Min-ji could barely sleep. She read and reread the employment contract, every clause seeming like a dream. She thought about how she would break the news to the store manager, how she would say goodbye to that place that for so long had been her haven and her prison. But above all, she thought of her anonymous benefactor. Who was this person? Why had he or she done so much for her? Her curiosity was almost as strong as her gratitude. Far away, at the top of the Lee Group building, Lee Jin-woo watched the twinkling lights of Seoul. He had received confirmation from Ji-yeon. Min-ji had accepted. A satisfied, almost triumphant smile lit up his face. He had kindled the flame, and now he was guiding her towards warmth. The first step to bringing her into his world had been taken not as a rescue, but as a deserved opportunity. He wasn't just a CEO. He was, for now, her silent guardian, weaving the threads of a destiny that, he felt, was increasingly intertwined with his own. He couldn't wait to see her shine. The days following Kim Ji-yeon's call were a whirlwind for Min-ji. The news of her acceptance resonated in her soul like the sound of a long-silenced bell announcing a new era. She bid farewell to the convenience store manager with a mix of relief and a pang of nostalgia. The manager, a middle-aged man who had always treated her with respect, albeit with professional distance, was visibly shocked. "Park Min-ji, at the Lee Group, are you sure?" he asked, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Yes, sir. I start in 2 weeks," she replied, a genuine smile lighting up her tired face. He shook his head, a mix of surprise and admiration in his gaze. "Well, congratulations, it's a great opportunity. You deserve it." The words, simple as they were, touched Min-ji deeply. She deserved it. After so many years of struggle, of bowing down, of accepting what life threw at her, perhaps she really did deserve it. The 2 weeks flew by. Min-ji spent her days between packing her few belongings, buying a pair of more formal shoes with the money she had saved, and visiting Han-jun. Telling him about the new opportunity was one of the sweetest moments of her life. Her brother's weak smile, the spark of hope in his eyes, was confirmation that it had all been worth it. "You'll be a great executive, sister," he whispered, his voice hoarse but full of pride. Min-ji laughed, tears welling in her eyes. "Just an assistant, Han-jun, but an assistant who will ensure you get the best treatment." The first day at the Lee Group dawned with a blue and promising sky. Min-ji put on her black blazer and pencil skirt, feeling like an imposter but determined. The building seemed even grander in the morning light, and the lobby, with its shimmering marble and abstract artworks, was a world apart from her old reality. She was greeted by a young HR assistant who led her to an intermediate floor. The office was a sea of modern cubicles, softly humming computers, and the contained murmur of professional conversations. Min-ji felt butterflies in her stomach. "Miss Park, welcome," said Kim Ji-yeon, emerging from a glass room. The HR director looked even more elegant in her impeccable pantsuit. "I'm glad you accepted our offer." "I thank you for the opportunity, ma'am," Min-ji replied, bowing. Ji-yeon smiled warmly. "You will be the senior assistant for the strategic planning department. It's a dynamic and demanding team, but I know you'll adapt well. Your direct supervisor will be Mr. Choi Hyun-woo. He's in a meeting now, but I'll introduce you later. For now, Ms. Lee Yoon-ji, our junior assistant, will guide you." Yoon-ji, a young woman with an easy smile and curious eyes, appeared. "Hello, Miss Park. Welcome. My name is Yoon-ji." Min-ji felt immediate relief. Yoon-ji seemed friendly. She was led to her cubicle, which was spacious and had a partial view of the city. A state-of-the-art computer, a stack of folders and a phone awaited. "Don't worry, we'll take it slow," Yoon-ji said, noticing Min-ji's apprehension. "It's a lot to absorb on the first day, but you'll get the hang of it quickly." The first few hours were a flood of information. Internal systems, protocols, colleagues' names. Min-ji strove to absorb everything, diligently taking notes in a notepad. She felt like a sponge, eager to learn, but also a bit overwhelmed. With each new task, each new face, the question persisted in her mind. Who did this for me? Far away on the executive floor, Lee Jin-woo was in his office, reviewing financial reports, but his mind wandered. He had received confirmation from Ji-yeon that Min-ji had arrived and was being integrated. A slight smile played on his lips. He imagined her expression, the mix of apprehension and determination. He stood up and walked to the panoramic window, observing the city below. The Lee Group was not just a business empire, it was his kingdom. And now, Min-ji was in his kingdom. He felt a sense of satisfaction, but also a growing impatience. The role of silent guardian was gratifying, but he longed for more. He wanted to know her, not as the unreachable CEO, but as the man who admired her. Not yet, he murmured to himself, his gaze fixed on the urban landscape through the window. She needs time to find her footing, to feel that she earned this herself. He wanted her to feel strong, capable, before he revealed himself and perhaps made her doubt her own abilities. He wanted love to blossom on fertile ground, not in a garden of debt and forced gratitude. Back on the intermediate floor, the afternoon brought the long-awaited introduction to Mr. Choi Hyun-woo. He was a man in his early 40s, with neatly combed hair and a penetrating gaze. His aura was one of efficiency and seriousness, but also of sharp intelligence. "Miss Park, welcome to the team," he said, extending his hand for a firm, direct handshake. "Kim Ji-yeon spoke highly of you. I hope you're ready for the challenge." "Yes, sir, I'm ready to learn and contribute," Min-ji replied, feeling a knot in her throat. But maintaining her composure, Choi Hyun-woo nodded, a slight smile appearing on his lips. "Excellent. Your first task will be to organize the digital files for the Aurora project. Yoon-ji can show you where everything is. I want a progress report by the end of the week." The task seemed monumental, but Min-ji felt a wave of adrenaline. Finally, something concrete to do. She plunged into the files, her mind focused, her fingers flying over the keyboard, following Yoon-ji's instructions. Time seemed to accelerate as she lost herself in organizing folders and documents. When the clock marked the end of the workday, Min-ji felt her shoulders heavy, her head throbbing, but a smile of satisfaction played on her lips. She had survived the first day, and more than that, she had begun to build something new. As she left the Lee Group building, the city lights came on, transforming Seoul into a sea of stars on the ground. The cool night air was a relief. She looked up at the top of the skyscraper, where Jin-woo's office was. That place, once a symbol of an unreachable world, was now her workplace. She still didn't know who her benefactor was, but gratitude was a constant flame in her heart. She was on the right path, and somehow she felt that he was watching, guiding her, and that their worlds were indeed drawing closer. The days following the first were a mix of exhaustion and euphoria for Min-ji. Each morning she woke with a blend of nervousness and renewed energy. The Lee Group was not just a workplace. It was an intensive school, a portal to a world she never imagined was hers. Yoon-ji continued to be her patient guide, explaining the intricacies of the systems and the team dynamics. Min-ji absorbed everything like a sponge, her notes accumulating in her pad. She spent the week immersed in the Aurora project, organizing the digital files with a meticulousness that surprised even herself. It was a tedious task, but Min-ji found satisfaction in each categorized folder, each correctly renamed document. She discovered an aptitude for organization and a capacity for concentration that helped her overcome the steep learning curve. At the end of the week, when she presented her progress report to Mr. Choi Hyun-woo, he looked at her with an expression of contained surprise. "Miss Park, you did an excellent job. The organization is impeccable. I expected no less, but I confess I was impressed by how quickly you adapted." Min-ji felt a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, sir. I'm striving to learn as quickly as possible." "And you are succeeding," he replied, a rare smile appearing on his lips. "Keep it up. We have a lot of work ahead." Mr. Choi's validation was a balm for her insecurity. She was proving to herself, and perhaps to whoever her benefactor was, that she was worthy of that opportunity. But the question persisted, a constant whisper in her mind. Who? Far away at the top of the skyscraper, Lee Jin-woo received updates on Min-ji's progress. Ji-yeon sent discreet reports, and even Choi Hyun-woo, unaware of the depth of Jin-woo's interest, praised the new assistant. "She's a born worker, sir, quick, organized, and with an impressive thirst for learning." Jin-woo listened to the words with a discreet smile, his heart swelling with pride. He knew He had seen that strength in her at the convenience store. He imagined the determination in her eyes as she faced each new challenge. He found himself looking at the intermediate floor on the security monitor, observing the routine of the strategic planning department. He never focused directly on her, but he knew she was there, a small figure amidst the hive of activity. Each day, the distance between them seemed to shrink, not physically but emotionally. The patience he had sworn to himself was wearing thin. He longed for more than just observing her from afar. One day, while Min-ji was in the pantry preparing tea, Jin-woo decided to go down to the intermediate floor under the pretext of a routine visit to another department. He walked through the corridors, his heart beating a little faster. He caught a glimpse of her through the glass door of the pantry, laughing at something Yoon-ji had said. The sound of her laughter, light and genuine, was music to his ears. He forced himself to keep walking, not to stop, not to reveal himself. Not yet. She was flourishing, gaining confidence, and he didn't want his intervention to make her doubt her own abilities. He wanted her to feel strong, capable, before he approached. But the sight of her, so vibrant and happy, kindled a flame of desire in his chest. He wanted to be the cause of her happiness, not just the hidden facilitator. Min-ji, oblivious to Jin-woo's presence, returned to her desk, feeling more at ease each day. She was beginning to understand the codes, the language, the rhythm of that new world. With each small victory, she thought of Han-jun, of his smile, of the hope she saw in his eyes. She was doing this for him, and for herself. As weeks turned into a month, Min-ji was no longer the apprehensive newcomer. She was an integral part of the strategic planning team. Her efficiency and dedication were noted. She even began to make suggestions to optimize certain processes, which impressed Choi Hyun-woo. "Miss Park, your suggestion for the new project tracking system is excellent," he said in a meeting. "We will implement it. Good work." Min-ji felt a blush of pride. She was contributing, truly contributing. The gratitude in her heart was immense, but her curiosity about her benefactor grew daily. She looked at the faces around her, trying to discern a look, a gesture, anything that could reveal the identity of the person who changed her life. On the executive floor, Jin-woo was in a meeting with Ji-yeon. "She's doing very well, sir," Ji-yeon reported. "Choi Hyun-woo is impressed. She's adapting faster than any of us expected." Jin-woo nodded, a glint in his eyes. "Excellent. Continue to monitor her closely, Ji-yeon, and prepare a report on the future projects of the Strategic Planning Department. I want to be more involved." Ji-yeon noticed the change in Jin-woo's tone, the subtle urgency in his voice. She smiled internally. The plan was progressing. Jin-woo knew that the time for his revelation was rapidly approaching. She had found her footing. She had shone on her own. Now, it was time for him to approach, not as the silent guardian, but as the man who admired her and longed to be in her world. He felt that Min-ji was ready, and he, more than ever, was ready for her. Destiny, which he had woven with such care, was about to unfold in a way he couldn't fully predict. The next step would be the most crucial. Lee Jin-woo was in his office, the morning light filtering through the blinds, illuminating the stack of documents on his desk. Ji-yeon's report on the future projects of the Strategic Planning Department was open, but his eyes were not focused on the words. They were fixed on a distant point, on the urban landscape that stretched beyond his window. He had waited long enough. Patience, once a virtue, was now a burden. Min-ji had established herself, proven her worth, and the flame of his admiration for her burned stronger each day. He picked up the internal phone and dialed Ji-yeon's number. "Ji-yeon, please come to my office." Minutes later, she was there, impeccable as always, with a notepad in hand. "Yes, sir?" "I have a new project in mind," Jin-woo began, his voice calm, but with an intensity that Ji-yeon recognized. A high-priority project that will require a dedicated team and, more importantly, an assistant with exceptional organizational skills and attention to detail. He paused, his eyes meeting hers. I'm thinking of something that involves restructuring our strategic partnership agreements, perhaps calling it Project Phoenix. It will require discretion and a fresh perspective. Ji-yeon nodded. Taking notes. I understand, sir. And the assistant? Choi Hyun-woo has highly praised Miss Park Min-ji. Her adaptability and organization in the Aurora project were remarkable. I believe she would be the ideal person to lead the research and data organization part of this new project. She will need direct access to certain confidential information and occasionally to me for clarifications. Ji-yeon hid a smile. Jin-woo's plan was transparent to her, and she admired the subtlety with which he executed it. I will suggest it to Mr. Choi immediately, sir. I'm sure he'll be happy to see his team's talent recognized. Excellent, Jin-woo said, a glint of anticipation in his eyes. Prepare a detailed folder with the initial objectives of Project Phoenix. I want Miss Park to receive this personally. On the intermediate floor, the news spread like a whisper. Project Phoenix was the company's new priority, coming directly from the executive floor. Choi Hyun-woo, with a mix of pride and surprise, called Min-ji to his office. Miss Park, he began, his expression serious, I have important news. The CEO, Lee Jin-woo, has initiated a new high-priority project, Project Phoenix. It is a vital strategic project for the company's future. He paused, and Min-ji felt her heart quicken. Director Kim Ji-yeon, on behalf of the CEO, suggested you to be the lead assistant on this project, responsible for research, data organization, and reports. It's an incredible opportunity, but also an immense responsibility. You will have to work directly with the executive team and at times with the CEO himself. Min-ji felt an electric shock run through her body. The CEO, Lee Jin-woo? The name echoed in her mind. She had seen photos of him in magazines, a powerful and distant man. Now she would be working for him? A knot formed in her throat, a mix of dread and euphoria. I accept, sir. And she managed to say, her voice a little shaky, I will do my best. Choi Hyun-woo nodded, a genuine smile appearing on his lips. I know you will. Ji-yeon will personally come to deliver the project folder and give you the initial instructions. Get ready, Miss Park, your journey is just beginning. Min-ji returned to her desk, her head spinning. Project Phoenix, the CEO. Everything seemed surreal. The gratitude in her heart intensified, but the question about her benefactor now had a new and urgent shade. Could it be? No, it was madness. The CEO of such a large company wouldn't have time for such a personal act of charity, but the sudden proximity was undeniable. Far away, Jin-woo watched the intermediate floor through the security monitor, a satisfied smile on his lips. He imagined her absorbing the news, the determination in her eyes, the spark of defiance. Destiny, which he had woven with such care, was about to unfold. The next step would be the most crucial, and he was ready to take the first step towards her, no longer as a silent guardian, but as a man who longed to know her. He couldn't wait to see her, to hear her voice, to feel the energy she radiated. The game of patience was over. From now on, love would have its chance. Min-ji returned to her desk, but couldn't concentrate. Choi Hyun-woo's words echoed in her mind. The CEO, Lee Jin-woo, suggested you to work directly with the executive team and, at times, with the CEO himself. It was as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet, replaced by a cloud of uncertainty and excitement. She, Park Min-ji, the former convenience store clerk, would now be the lead assistant on a vital company project under the direct supervision of the CEO. The irony was palpable. She looked at her hands, which trembled slightly. The fear of not being up to the task was immense, but the adrenaline of a new challenge propelled her, and the question, which was once a whisper, now screamed in her mind, could it be? The mysterious benefactor, the divine intervention in her life, the opportunity that pulled her from the abyss. Everything pointed to a powerful figure. But the CEO, Lee Jinwoo? It seemed like a fantasy, a K-drama plot. How could such a busy and influential man have noticed someone like her? As she tried to organize her thoughts, an elegant figure approached her desk. It was Kim Ji-yeon, the director she occasionally saw in the executive floor corridors, always impeccable and with an aura of authority. "Miss Park Min-ji?" Ji-yeon asked, her voice soft but firm. Min-ji stood up hastily, bowing. "Yes, Director Kim." Ji-yeon placed a thick black folder on Min-ji's desk. "I'm Kim Ji-yeon. Mr. Choi must have already informed you about Project Phoenix. This is the initial folder with the objectives and first guidelines." She opened the folder, revealing charts and documents with the company logo. "This project is of extreme importance for the future of our company. The CEO, Lee Jinwoo, has high expectations, and he personally requested your participation." Min-ji felt a blush rise to her face. I will do my best, Director Kim." Ji-yeon nodded, her eyes assessing Min-ji with an intensity that made her feel completely exposed. "Your dedication and organizational skills were noted. Mr. Lee highly values discretion and attention to detail. You will have access to confidential information and will need to maintain the highest integrity." She paused, a small, almost imperceptible smile appearing on her lips. "Your first step will be to review all existing strategic partnership agreements and prepare an executive summary for each. Mr. Lee wants a clear overview before our first meeting." "Meeting?" Min-ji repeated, her voice faltering. "Yes," Ji-yeon confirmed. "Mr. Lee wants to meet with you personally in 2 days, on Thursday at 10 a.m. in his office, to discuss initial progress and clarify any questions. He believes that direct communication is essential for a project of this magnitude." Min-ji's heart skipped a beat. 2 days. She would have 2 days to prepare for the meeting with the CEO, the man who perhaps, just perhaps, was her benefactor. The idea was as terrifying as it was thrilling. "Understood. Director Kim, I will be ready." Ji-yeon gave Min-ji a final look, a glint of approval in her eyes. "Excellent. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Welcome to Project Phoenix, Miss Park." With that, she turned and walked back to the executive elevator, leaving Min-ji alone with the black folder and a flood of emotions. Min-ji opened the folder, feeling the weight of responsibility. The documents were complex, full of terms she would need to research, but an iron determination ignited in her chest. She would not fail, not after everything that had happened. She would make Han-jun proud and prove to herself and to her mysterious benefactor that she was worthy of that trust. Far away, on the executive floor, Lee Jinwoo watched the security monitor. He saw her pick up the folder, the serious expression on her face, the concentration he so admired. Ji-yeon had done her part. The invitation to the meeting had been delivered. Jinwoo felt a mix of anxiety and euphoria. The plan he had so carefully orchestrated was finally unfolding. He had approached her, not abruptly, but through an opportunity she deserved on her own merit. He wanted her to see him as a colleague, a mentor, before anything else. He stood up and walked to the window, looking at the city that stretched below. The afternoon sun painted the sky with shades of orange and purple. Patience had been a virtue, but now the anticipation was almost unbearable. In 2 days, he would see her up close. Talk to her, feel the energy she radiated. He couldn't wait to see her, to hear her voice, to feel the connection he knew existed between them. Min-ji stood there, motionless, the black folder weighing in her hands like a newly revealed secret. The echo of Ji-yeon's words still resonated in her mind. Mr. Lee wants to meet with you personally in 2 days, on Thursday at 10 a.m. in his office. 2 days. That deadline seemed like an eternity, and at the same time a blink of an eye. The air around her seemed to vibrate with a new and frightening energy. She sat down, her heart pounding erratically. She opened the folder again, her fingers brushing the documents. Strategic partnership agreements, financial reports, market projections. It was a universe of information she had barely scratched the surface of. The responsibility was overwhelming, but the determination that had propelled her through so many adversities now ignited with fierce intensity. She could not fail, not now. The following hours were a blur of concentration. Minji plunged into the documents, researching unknown terms, making frantic notes, trying to absorb every detail. She stayed late, the monitor light illuminating her tired face, but her eyes shone with a new passion. Every chart, every clause, every number was a step that brought her closer to that crucial meeting. She imagined Jin Woo, the CEO, sitting across from her, his eyes assessing, and the image spurred her to work even harder. But behind all the dedication, the question persisted, an insistent whisper that became a scream in her mind. Could it be him? Lee Jin-woo, the man who pulled her from the abyss, the man who somehow seemed to be weaving the threads of her destiny. The idea was so grand, so improbable, that it made her feel dizzy. How could such a powerful and distant CEO have cared about a simple convenience store clerk? It was a fantasy, a waking dream. But the coincidence of her meteoric rise, the intervention in her life, the sudden proximity, everything seemed to point to him. She shook her head, trying to push away the madness of that hypothesis. It was better to focus on the work. That night, in her small apartment, Minji could barely sleep. The Project Phoenix folder lay open on the living room table, and she found herself rereading excerpts, memorizing names, trying to anticipate the questions Jin-woo might ask. Anxiety was a knot in her stomach, but there was also a strange excitement. The chance to finally look into the eyes of her possible benefactor, to perhaps find a clue, was almost unbearable. Far away in his luxurious executive apartment, Lee Jin-woo also felt the anticipation. He had received Ji-yeon's report. Minji had accepted the project with the expected dedication. He imagined her now, immersed in the documents, her brilliant mind absorbing every piece of information. A soft smile touched his lips. He didn't want her to feel overwhelmed, but he knew she needed that challenge to flourish. He reviewed the points he wanted to address in Thursday's meeting, not just about the project, but about her. He wanted to see how she would react, how her eyes would sparkle when discussing challenges, how her voice would sound when expressing her ideas. He had planned every step with the precision of a strategist, but now human emotion began to take over. He was not just a CEO, but a passionate man, on the verge of an encounter that would change everything. The next day passed at a frenetic pace for Minji. She sought additional information, consulted colleagues about the most complex terms, and prepared an executive summary that she hoped would be impeccable. Every word was carefully chosen, every chart meticulously reviewed. She wanted to prove her worth, not just to the CEO, but to herself. She wanted to show that she was worthy of that opportunity, worthy of the trust that someone, perhaps him, had placed in her. On Wednesday night, Minji was exhausted, but satisfied. The folder was organized, her notes ready. She had done everything she could. Now, all that remained was to wait. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, a different woman from the one who worked at the convenience store. There was a new strength in her eyes, a determination that had transformed her. On the executive floor, Jin-woo looked at the sleeping city. Thursday was approaching. In a few hours he would see her, no longer through monitors or reports, but face to face. He would take the first step towards her, no longer as a silent guardian, but as a man who longed to know her. Love would have its chance. Thursday dawned with a grey sky, but for Park Min-ji, the day radiated its own light, charged with expectation and nervousness. She woke before her alarm, her stomach churning. She dressed in the most formal outfit she owned, a charcoal grey pantsuit that, despite its simplicity, made her feel more confident. She reviewed the Project Phoenix folder for the 10th time, every page, every note, every chart etched into her mind. The executive summary was impeccable, the result of sleepless nights and an almost obsessive dedication. As she ate her breakfast, a piece of bread and a glass of milk, the image of Lee Jin-woo formed in her mind. She had seen him in glimpses in the corridors, in magazine photos, but never up close, never in conversation. He was an imposing figure, a titan of business. The idea of sitting across from him, discussing a project of such magnitude, was surreal. And the question, the same one that had tormented her for days, pounded in her chest. Could it be him? The commute to the office seemed longer than usual. Upon arriving at the company building, she took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. The executive elevator, once a symbol of an unreachable world, now took her directly to Lee Jin-woo's floor. The doors opened on the top floor, revealing an environment of discreet luxury and reverent silence. The carpet was soft, the walls adorned with contemporary artworks, and the city view was breathtaking. Jin-woo's secretary, an elegant and efficient woman, greeted her with a polite smile. "Miss Park Min-ji, Mr. Lee is waiting for you. Please, come in." Min-ji felt her legs tremble slightly as she followed the secretary to the dark wooden door. The secretary knocked softly and opened it, gesturing for Min-ji to enter. Lee Jin-woo's office was vast, with a glass wall that offered a panoramic view of the city. The desk was made of dark, polished wood, and behind it standing was Lee Jin-woo. He was even more impressive up close. His posture was impeccable, his tailored suit accentuating his athletic build. His eyes, which she had only glimpsed from afar, were penetrating, but there was a depth to them that made her hold her breath. "Miss Park Min-ji, please come in," Jin-woo said, his voice calm and resonant, with a welcoming tone that surprised her. He gestured to the chair in front of his desk. "Have a seat." Min-ji bowed deeply, her heart beating like a drum. "Good morning, Mr. Lee." "Thank you." She sat down, placing the black folder carefully on the desk. Jin-woo sat down, his eyes fixed on her. It was not a look of critical evaluation, but of genuine, almost warm curiosity. "I hope it wasn't too difficult to prepare everything in such a short time." "Not at all, Mr. Lee. It was a pleasure and a stimulating challenge," Min-ji replied, her voice a little firmer than she expected. A small smile touched Jin-woo's lips. "Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Director Kim Ji-yeon informed me about your dedication. She highly praised your ability to absorb information and your work ethic. I just did my best, Mr. Lee." "And your best is remarkable, Miss Park," he said. And for an instant, his eyes seemed to glow with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. It was a look that seemed to see beyond her professional facade, a look that knew her somehow. The question, could it be him, echoed in her mind with overwhelming force. "I'm eager to hear your conclusions on the strategic partnership agreements," Jin-woo continued, his voice returning to a more formal tone, breaking the brief moment of connection. "Please begin when you're ready." Min-ji opened the folder, her fingers slightly trembling. She took a deep breath and began to present, her voice gaining confidence as she delved into the details of the documents. She explained the key points of each agreement, highlighted risks and opportunities, and presented her suggestions for optimization. Jin-woo listened attentively, occasionally asking a pointed question that demonstrated his deep understanding of the subject. He did not interrupt her, allowing her to fully articulate her ideas. When Minji finished, silence filled the office for a few seconds. Jinwoo watched her, a glint of approval in his eyes. "Very impressive, Miss Park," he finally said. "Your analysis is insightful, and your recommendations are well-founded. It's exactly the kind of vision we expected for Project Phoenix." He leaned slightly over the table, and his gaze softened. "You have a natural talent for this, and a strength, a resilience that is rare." A strength, a resilience that is rare. How could he know that? How could he have perceived something so intimate about her? Minji's heart pounded, and the certainty that was once a whisper now screamed in her mind. It was him. It had to be him. Jinwoo noticed the change in her expression, the slight tremor in her hands. He smiled, a genuine and gentle smile that softened the lines of his face. "I am very pleased with your work, Miss Park. We will continue to meet regularly to monitor the project's progress." He paused, his eyes meeting hers in a prolonged gaze that seemed to carry a world of unspoken meanings. "And perhaps soon we can talk about other things." Minji could barely respond, her head spinning with the implicit revelation. "Yes, Mr. Lee, I appreciate the opportunity." "The opportunity is yours by merit, Miss Park," Jinwoo corrected gently. He stood up, indicating that the meeting had ended. "Have a good day." Minji stood up, bowed, picked up her folder, and left the office in a trance. The air on the executive floor seemed denser, the silence deeper. She had looked into Lee Jinwoo's eyes, and although he hadn't said a direct word, she felt it. She knew. The mysterious benefactor, the man who had pulled her from the abyss, was right there, in front of her, and he saw her, not just as an employee, but as something more. Far away, Jinwoo watched his office door close. A victorious and tender smile spread across his face. She had noticed. He could see it in her eyes. The first step had been taken. Now, love would have its chance, no longer in the shadows, but in the light. He was ready to take the next step, to reveal everything, to build something real with the woman who had captured his heart. Minji left Lee Jinwoo's office, the sound of the door gently closing behind her, echoing in her ears like a verdict. The executive corridor, once a symbol of her ascent, now seemed like a tunnel where each step brought her closer to an overwhelming truth. She barely registered the soft carpet beneath her feet or the artworks on the walls. Her mind was in a whirl, Jinwoo's words repeating endlessly. "You have a natural talent for this, and a strength, resilience." The word was a seal, an undeniable confirmation. It was him. There was no longer any doubt. Lee Jinwoo, the imposing CEO, the man she had admired from afar, was her silent guardian angel. She arrived at her desk but couldn't concentrate. The Project Phoenix folder lay untouched. How could she continue with normal work when her world had just been turned upside down? The gratitude was a feeling so vast that it almost suffocated her. He had saved her brother, pulled her from that dead end, and now he looked at her with that glint in his eyes, with the promise of other things. What did he mean by other things? Her heart quickened again. Was it just a conversation about her future at the company? A promotion, perhaps? Or was there something more? The way he looked at her, the intensity of that prolonged gaze, suggested something that went far beyond a professional relationship. A wave of heat rose up her neck. Was it possible that he felt something for her? The idea was so grand, so improbable, that it made her feel dizzy. She stood up and went to the window, looking at the city that stretched below. The people down there seemed tiny, their lives distant from the complexity that enveloped her. She, the former convenience store clerk, was now on the executive floor of one of the largest companies in the country, and the CEO, her savior, seemed interested in her in a way she would never dare to dream. As Minji tried to process the avalanche of emotions, Ji-yeon, the HR director, approached her desk. "Minji, are you all right? I just saw Mr. Lee and he seemed very pleased with your presentation." Minji turned, forcing a smile. "Yes, Director Kim, he was very kind and the meeting went well." Ji-yeon observed her with a piercing gaze. "You seem a bit, shaken." "It's normal after a meeting with Mr. Lee. He can be intense. It's just that," Minji stammered, unable to reveal the true reason for her state. "The intensity of the project is great." Ji-yeon nodded, but her eyes still held a pang of curiosity. "Well, keep up the good work. Mr. Lee mentioned that he wants you to continue leading the project and that you will have regular meetings." "Yes, he did," Minji confirmed, feeling a mix of relief and dread. More meetings meant more time near him, more chances to unravel the mystery, but also more pressure on her heart. Far away in his office, Lee Jin-woo leaned against the glass wall, watching the door Min-ji had just passed through. The smile on his face was now more open, more relaxed. She had understood. He could see the spark of recognition in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly. The seed had been planted, and he knew it would germinate. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Ji-yeon, please come to my office." When Ji-yeon entered, Jin-woo invited her to sit down. "Miss Park's presentation was exceptional. She exceeded my expectations." "I knew she wouldn't disappoint you, Mr. Lee," Ji-yeon replied, a proud smile on her face. "Indeed, and I would like to accelerate the process of her integration into the executive team. Prepare the documents for a promotion to senior project manager with a significant salary increase, to be implemented next month." Ji-yeon blinked, surprised. "So fast, Mr. Lee? It's a meteoric rise." "She deserves it," Jin-woo said, his voice firm. "And also, Ji-yeon, I would like to organize a discreet business dinner next week, a dinner with some members of the Project Phoenix team, and of course Miss Park Min-ji." Ji-yeon looked at him, a silent understanding passing through her eyes. She had witnessed Jin-woo's interest in Min-ji from the beginning, and now the pieces were falling into place. "Understood, Mr. Lee. I will take care of all the details." Jin-woo nodded, his eyes returning to the city view. Now it was time for a different game, a game of hearts. He no longer wanted to hide the truth. He wanted Min-ji to know who he was, what he felt. The dinner would be the next step, a more intimate setting for him to begin building the bridge between them, not just as CEO and employee, but as man and woman. The next day, the news of Min-ji's promotion spread through the executive floor like wildfire. Ji-yeon called her to her office again, this time to formalize the offer. "Min-ji, Mr. Lee was extremely impressed. You will be promoted to senior project manager with a considerable salary increase starting next month." Min-ji felt the air leave her lungs. Senior project manager, but "I just transferred here." "It's Mr. Lee's decision," Ji-yeon explained, an enigmatic smile on her lips. "He sees extraordinary potential in you. It's an incredible opportunity." Min-ji nodded, still in shock. I don't know what to say. I'm very grateful." "There's one more thing," Ji-yeon continued, picking up an elegant card from the table. "Mr. Lee is organizing a discreet business dinner next week to celebrate the progress of Project Phoenix. He would very much like you to attend. It will be at the Aurora restaurant on Thursday evening." Min-ji took the card, her fingers brushing the smooth paper. A dinner discreet, with him. Her heart pounded like a drum. "Yes, of course, I will go." Upon leaving Ji-yeon's office, Min-ji felt as if she were floating. The promotion was a dream, but the dinner. The dinner was the promise of something more, something she dared not name. She spent the rest of the day in a state of euphoria and apprehension, barely able to focus on her tasks. At home, she told her brother, who was recovering well, about the promotion. He hugged her, proud, unaware of the true dimension of the unfolding events. Minji looked at the restaurant card, the date circled in her mind. The Aurora was one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, a place she had only seen in magazines. She knew this dinner wouldn't just be about business. It would be the moment of truth, the moment when Lee Jin-woo, her benefactor and her CEO, would finally reveal what lay behind his glances, his words, and his gestures. She was terrified and at the same time eager to find out. The next step was ahead, and she was ready to face it, whatever its meaning. The days leading up to the dinner at Aurora were a sweet torture for Minji. Every minute seemed to stretch, laden with an intoxicating mix of excitement and dread. She found herself looking at the restaurant card, imagining what she would wear, what she would say, what he would say. The promotion was real, the documents were already being prepared, but it was the dinner that dominated her thoughts. She visited a few stores, something she hadn't done in a long time, looking for something that was elegant, professional, but also made her feel confident. She ended up choosing a simple navy blue dress that accentuated her figure without being provocative, and a pair of low-heeled shoes she had saved for a special occasion. She wanted to be impeccable, not just for Mr. Lee, but for herself. On Thursday evening, Minji felt her heart pounding in her chest as she got ready. Her brother, Park Jun-ho, who was already home and recovering well, noticed her nervousness. "Is everything all right, sister?" he asked, watching her from the sofa. "You look so beautiful. Is it an important work dinner?" Minji forced a smile. "Yes, Jun-ho. It's a dinner with Mr. Lee and some members of the Project Phoenix team, to celebrate the progress." She omitted the part about it being discreet and the overwhelming feeling that it was much more than a business dinner. "That's great. You deserve all the best, sister," he said, genuinely happy for her. "Have fun." Minji nodded, picking up her small purse. "I'll be back later, don't worry." The Aurora restaurant was even more impressive in person. The glass and steel facade reflected the city lights, and the interior was a sanctuary of discreet luxury, with soft lighting, contemporary art on the walls, and the elegant murmur of hushed conversations. A maitre d' led her to a private room, where a round table awaited, with only 4 places occupied. Ji-yeon, the HR director, was there, smiling warmly. Beside her, 2 other members of the Project Phoenix team, Mr. Kim, head of development, and Ms. Lee, design lead. And of course, Lee Jin-woo. He was seated facing the door, and his eyes met Minji's the moment she entered. A soft smile, almost imperceptible to the others, lit up his face. He stood up and the others followed suit. "Miss Park, how good of you to come," Jin-woo said, his voice calm, but with a note that only she seemed to catch. He extended his hand, and Minji felt an electric shock as she touched his skin. His fingers lingered a little longer than necessary. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Lee," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. He led her to the chair beside him, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by Ji-yeon, who exchanged a quick glance with Ms. Lee. The dinner began with a business atmosphere, as expected. They talked about the progress of Project Phoenix, the challenges overcome, and future goals. Minji, despite her nervousness, participated actively, answering Jin-woo's questions with the confidence she had acquired. He watched her, a glint of admiration in his eyes that made her blush. After dessert, Jin-woo leaned slightly. "Mr. Kim, Ms. Lee, I appreciate your presence and your excellent work. Ji-yeon, you too. I am confident that the project will continue to prosper with everyone's effort. But now, I have some more specific matters to discuss with Miss Park regarding the next phase of the project. You are dismissed if you wish." There was a brief moment of surprise, but the others nodded, understanding the cue. Mr. Kim and Ms. Lee said their goodbyes, and Ji-yeon, with a complicit smile for Min-ji, also stood up. "I'm sure you two will have a lot to talk about," Ji-yeon said before leaving Min-ji and Jin-woo alone in the private room. The silence that followed was dense, charged with anticipation. Min-ji felt her heart pound against her ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. Jin-woo watched her for a long moment, his eyes deep and intense. He reached his hand across the table, placing it delicately on hers. The touch was soft but firm, and Min-ji felt a shiver run up her arm. "Min-ji," he began, his voice now lower, more intimate, devoid of any CEO formality. "I know you know." The air seemed to thin in Min-ji's lungs. She couldn't speak, just looked at him, her eyes welling with a mix of emotions she couldn't contain. "I didn't want you to go through that," he continued, gently squeezing her hand. "That night, at the convenience store, I couldn't stand by." Tears streamed down Min-ji's face. It was him. It had always been him. The guardian angel who had changed her life. The gratitude, the surprise, and above all, the emotion of knowing that he cared hit her with full force. I don't know what to say, Mr. Lee," she whispered, her voice choked. He smiled, a smile that reached his eyes, full of tenderness. "Jin-woo, please, call me Jin-woo." He squeezed her hand again, his gaze fixed on hers. "And there's so much more I want to tell you, Min-ji. Much more than just the gratitude you feel. There's something I feel for you, something that goes far beyond any project or promotion." Min-ji felt the world spin. The bridge was being built, and she was ready to cross it. Jin-woo's words echoed in her mind, undressing a truth she had felt but never dared to confirm. He loved her, not the distant CEO, but the man who had rescued her, the silent guardian. She pulled her hand from his, not to withdraw, but to wipe away the tears that continued to fall. "Jin-woo," she whispered, his name sounding strange and wonderful on her lips. I don't know what to say. I suspected, but I never imagined it was true. You did so much for me." He smiled again, a smile that dissipated any lingering formality between them. "I didn't do it out of obligation, Min-ji. I did it because I couldn't ignore your strength, your dignity. You touched me in a way no one ever has. To see you endure all that with such grace, I couldn't leave you alone." He extended his hand again, and this time she held it firmly, intertwining their fingers. "And it wasn't just gratitude that brought me here. It was something deeper, something that grew every day I watched you, every time we talked." Min-ji felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of belonging she had never experienced. I also feel something, Jin-woo," she confessed, her voice choked. "From the first day, when everything started to change. I wondered who my angel was and why he would do so much for me. And then you appeared at the company, and your eyes. The way you looked at me. I tried to ignore it, tried to think it was just the imagination of a naive girl, but..." She shook her head, a trembling smile on her lips. "I couldn't. I fell in love with you, Jin-woo, with the man I barely knew, but who I felt understood me more than anyone." Jin-woo's eyes widened slightly at her confession, and they filled with pure joy. He squeezed her hand. "Min-ji, you are not naive. You are the bravest and most resilient woman I have ever met, and to hear that from you, it's everything I hoped for." He leaned a little further across the table, his voice soft and laden with emotion. "I know the difference in our lives, in our positions, might seem like an abyss, but to me that means nothing. What matters is what I feel for you, what you feel for me. I want to build something real with you, Min-ji, a future. The social barriers, the world's expectations, everything seemed insignificant before the sincerity in his eyes. She had spent her entire life fighting, surviving. Now, he offered not only security but love, a love that promised to transcend everything. "A future?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Yes." "Minji." "A future together," he confirmed, his eyes fixed on hers. "I want to be by your side every step of the way. I want to see you flourish, support you in your dreams. I want you to know that you will never be alone again, that you will always have someone to love and protect you." He released her hand for an instant, only to take a small velvet box from the inner pocket of his jacket. Minji watched, her heart pounding erratically. He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a single sparkling stone. "Minji," he said, his voice a little hoarse with emotion. "I know it's fast, but when you know, you know. Park Minji, would you accept to be my partner in life, my wife?" Tears returned, this time of pure happiness. She couldn't speak, just nodded vigorously, a radiant smile illuminating her face. Jinwoo smiled back, a smile of relief and triumph. He took the ring and, with slightly trembling hands, slipped it onto her ring finger. The ring fit perfectly, sparkling under the soft restaurant light. He stood up, walked around the table and knelt beside her, holding her hands. "I promise to love you, respect you and cherish you every day of our lives." Minji leaned in and hugged him, her tears wetting his shoulder. "I love you too, Jinwoo, I promise." The world outside, with its conventions and expectations, seemed distant. There, in that moment, in their own sanctuary of love, Lee Jinwoo and Park Minji, the CEO and the former convenience store clerk, had found each other. Her brother's debts were paid, her career was on the rise, and her heart, once burdened, was now light and full of a love that had been born from adversity and blossomed in hope. The bridge had been built, and they were ready to cross it together, hand in hand, towards a future they would never have dared to dream of.